stay where you are. Let me bring in toxicologist Dr. Gerhard Verdoorn, just on that issue of potential carbon monoxide poisoning. Dr. Verdoorn, without all the details, very difficult to make an assessment, I imagine, from the perspective of a professional like yourself, but just looking at the multiple reports, if there was some form of poisoning, how long would it take to actually get to the bottom of what may have led those deaths, to those deaths rather?
Well, if the law enforcement agencies were acting correctly and acted rapidly after the incident occurred, they would have taken the bodies of those particular deceased people to the mortuary, and they would have done post-mortems immediately, taken the blood samples and gotten the blood samples off to the forensic laboratories for analysis. So that could have happened within a day or two after the incident. Now, at this stage, like you said, the police refuses to release any comments on this. And having spoken to Dr. Gerhard Verdoorn, who was the founder of the Tygerberg Poison Center, just after the incident broke in the media, his opinion was that it wasn't any sort of narcotic toxin, which I thought in the beginning, or a pesticide, any of that nature, but it was basically a case of the young people being denuded of oxygen and then becoming acidotic in their bodies. In other words, they had carbon dioxide saturation or even carbon monoxide saturation in the blood, which can happen very easily in a case like that where you've got cluttering of people. And on top of that, we also read there was pepper spray sprayed into the crowd, and that obviously causes immediate constriction of the alveoli. So people breathe with difficulty, or they don't breathe at all. So immediately there's a rapid buildup of carbon dioxide in the blood, and the person would pass out because of a lack of oxygen. And that points to the most possible or the most probable cause of the death, because if there was any other toxin involved, like a pesticide or a methamphetamine or something like that, one would see total different responses, total different symptoms. So it looks very much like an oxygen denuding in the place, and then the people suffering from an overload of carbon dioxide and probably also carbon monoxide in the blood.
Let's talk about, when we look at the setting that these young people were in, very small room, very overcrowded. We're told that a petrol generator was running inside the room. And when we think about then the scale of the impact, and really we've got 21 young people dying here, but do you think that given the scenario you've explained to us, that more young people could have potentially died here?
Yeah, there's always a possibility that more people could have died. So normally with a case like that, when you've got a situation where there's oxygen deprivation, the people in the center of the whole crowd would start passing out first, and they would obviously be trampled on by other people, which will not really be helpful at all. And the ones that are closer to any of the evacuation points, like a door or a window, they will be less affected, but they will become dizzy and they will become like semi-conscious. And there were some escapees, fortunately, and it was a very sad thing that happened there. But certainly, if the crowd hadn't broken up, there would have been more deaths that happened in that place because of the dire situation.
Malungelo, I want to bring you back in here again. Of course, families are looking for answers. The community is looking for answers. Officially, we don't have anything on record yet about, what caused the deaths of these young people. When are we expecting that?
Well, Kathy, in fact, the police this afternoon at around 5 o'clock released a statement saying that the investigation into this matter is still happening, and they will communicate in due course, Kathy, the results of their investigation. But of course, one of the things, Kathy, that people here have actually been talking about, saying that the police minister had made an assurance, Kathy, that, senior people from Johannesburg and other provinces would be brought in to assist. And one of the questions people are asking is why it's taking the police and authorities so long to actually determine what was the cause of death of those 21 youngsters. But what we know for certain, Kathy, from those at least that we've spoken to, that those who were inside that particular tavern, is that they're talking about a tear gas smell that they had. And we also know, though, Kathy, that from those that were taken to hospital, that they were taken with symptoms like they were vomiting, they had back aches, and also tight chests as well. But also, Kathy, what we're seeing now, in fact, we're seeing authorities from Buffalo City Municipality and more police investigators. We're seeing that municipal health services have also arrived here at the scene. We're seeing more investigators, in fact, also still arriving at the scene. In fact, we're told that we need to move back a bit. They are cordoning the area again, Kathy, as they will continue with their investigation. But I think it is also important, Kathy, to note that that police nyala that's there, that police nyala has been there since the incident. And of course, remember, there were also threats from some members of the community, especially young people, saying that they want this Enyobeni Tavern to be destroyed, to be set alight following that incident. And of course, there's many questions, Kathy, about the circumstances leading to the death of those 21 youngsters, but not many answers forthcoming.
Thanks for that, Malungelo. Dr. Verdoorn, I just want to come back to you and wrap it up with you. Interesting that as we've been watching that scene over the last couple of days, police seem to be cordoning off more parts of the scene, even around the tavern, after the fact, when families have been on that scene, journalists have been on that scene, community members have been on that scene. Is that going to make a difference in terms of what they're able to piece together about what caused these deaths?
Absolutely not, because the situation on the ground, in other words, the site of the incident is completely compromised. So to cordon it off now is completely senseless. In other words, it means that there is no more evidence they can gain from the site. The most important thing for the police to do now, and for any authorities, whether health or police or municipal authorities, is to go and do the proper pathology on the bodies of the deceased patients and do the pathology, histopathology, to find out why did they die. And we have some very good state pathologists or private pathologists in the country. That's where you start. But to keep on investigating on the ground and to cordon it off, it is completely senseless, because the public and the police and the authorities have all been walking over the place. So they destroyed any evidence that could have been on the site.
This refutal that we have had out of the department that carbon monoxide poisoning has been completely ruled out as a potential cause of death. Listening to you in this last interview, do you think that something like that has come a bit too prematurely?
I think the authorities are very often too quick with their responses. And we found it also the same case with, remember some time ago when kids died after eating a particular type of noodles, and they also really made some very unfounded statements in the media. So one never makes a statement about what caused the death. You can hypothesize that there was oxygen denudation in the area, that there was carbon dioxide saturation in the bodies, and maybe carbon monoxide. But you wait until you get the pathology report. So it is senseless now to start putting all sorts of hypotheses on the table. But the symptoms of the children and the situation around there does not point to anything else than the buildup of carbon dioxide in the system. We hear about the petrol generator that was there that would obviously have sucked up a lot of the oxygen. We hear about people passing out and having vomiting and stuff like this. This is typical of oxygen deprivation. So why they would go and do a physical examination on the site, whereas the main focus should be on the bodies of the children, with a good pathologist can tell you within 2 days what happened with the children. So I think they should have a real wake-up call at the level of all the authorities and start doing the job, because the people, ourselves, we want the answers.
Toxicologist Dr. Gerhard Verdoorn, thank you so much for your time. And of course, this live picture coming from Malungelo Boy, who's out there with our camera person tonight with the latest pictures. As you can see, police continuing to cordon off more areas around this tavern. It's what? 3 days after the fact, and as I asked Dr. Verdoorn there, what is the value of cordoning these areas off so many days after the fact.